And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to The Turning Point. And we're delighted to have with us as our guest, who's no stranger to my program, but for the first time on The Turning Point, is Professor Anura Vijayapala, who is the head of the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Moratuwa and a former chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board. Thank you, Professor Anura, for coming on the program. Much appreciate your support of
Thank
this.
you for inviting me.
Thank you. So Sri Lanka is in a change. Sri Lanka has voted overwhelmingly for change. I think it's probably the first time that any party didn't openly ask for a two-thirds majority, and they have been, in a way, blessed, in a way, saddled with the two-thirds majority. What, as a professional man, what's your take on the whole?
Yeah. For us now, I also have witnessed the political system in this country for last 50 years since the J.R. Jayawardena government took over. Then I was in grade 7, but still we were interested in the political change in 1977. And still we see that after decades and decades of governments going in this capitalist system, and country is getting far behind the development agendas of the region. And
Yeah.
South Asia, other countries were struggling, but they were going ahead before us. Take Bangladesh, take India, take other countries. They are quietly ahead of us. And why? We were in the foremost in our history in this region. But so these governments after the independence totally failed the people. I think that is the reason why NPP government was entrusted to make a change for the benefit of the people, and the people were bearing unbearable hardships, especially the poor.
Indeed.
So they had no choice. So I would think the people's thinking is right, but of course, as you said, the government has a huge task to perform.
Indeed. I mean, that's true what you said about the people. They were completely and totally fed up, and they had no choice. My producer and I traveled the length and breadth of Sri Lanka, from this to the south, to the hills, to the east, to the north, to the northeast, northwest, and everywhere we went, it became so obvious that it wasn't a question of availability, but it was more a question of affordability. People simply could not afford, they couldn't afford to live, basically.
Exactly.
And it is true, it is really true. People couldn't afford medicine even if they could find it, and they couldn't afford food. They couldn't afford to send their children to school.
Exactly.
And so we are here in this change. What chances? What do you think are the challenges for President Dissanayake and his team?
Yeah. I think the president, especially the people trusted the president,
Indeed.
and of course the general election was a follow-up. It is a follow-up, but the trust is kept on the president. So president with his team now has to deliver, and the most formidable task, there are several of them. Of course, we all agree handling this over $100 billion loan portfolio is number one. One task that he has to face.
Yeah.
That is number one. And then second, how to take the just recovering economy, our GDP,
Yes.
in the right path to get at least above 5% rate for the next 3-4 years. So that needs a huge, investment on one hand. On the other hand, careful maneuvering. And this government has a big plus point that we all have to agree. That is, the corruption will be either zero or minimum. So that is a big encouragement to any potential investors who wish to come here. In the previous systems, whether it is Sri Lanka, UNP, or the combinations, the corruption was uninterrupted and prevailing everywhere.
Everywhere, indeed.
There are many investors who came here got
Yes.
fed up and went back. And they
Absolutely.
went to some other place, Vietnam, or whatever other countries. And now this government, on the other hand, has a better chance to give the confidence to investors, both local as well as the foreign, so that they will come here and invest. But they have to first sort out this rating issue. Because for any investor to bring him money here, we should have a good credit rating. Still, we are RD in the Fitch rating
Yes.
for the foreign.
So we need to get
currency.
that up again.
We have to get it up again. So that is a chicken and egg situation in one hand. Because to revive it, you need a better rating. To get a better rating, you need
to revive.
revival. So it is a bit difficult. So these are the challenges the president and the team faces. Of course, we are talking about these petty differences, whether the speaker has the doctorate and all that.
Yes, yeah.
But they are good for the evening news.
Yes.
But that they are not remedies for the ailing economy.
Indeed. Of course, it was a good opportunity for the MPP to show that they meant business, that they are not the same as before,
Exactly.
the governments before, and we had this person resign on his own accord, and that was hopefully the end of the
they
matter.
handled the situation in an acceptable manner to the
Indeed.
general public.
Indeed.
Yes.
And I was doing some research because, of course, I associate you with the power sector. And I made some calls and I found out that in India and in Bangladesh, the average cost for a manufacturing facility, let's say garment manufacturing, the electricity component was anything in India between 8 and 12%, and in Bangladesh about 10 to 12%. But in Sri Lanka, it was anything from 10 to 15%. And Sri Lanka has the highest electricity cost. The tariff is the highest in the region.
Yes.
So with that, how do you surely this is an essential component and it's the most expensive component. How does one mitigate that? What does the government have to do?
Yeah. Coming to the question why it is and what can be done.
Yeah.
I would look at the importance of it. Now in order to get a reasonably good GDP growth rate,
Yeah.
about 5%, industry and the service sector, they have to come up with substantial contributions. Of
Yeah.
course, the agriculture will do certain
Yeah.
things, but jump should be from industry and from the service sector, hotels and all that. But all of them heavily depend upon electricity, to some extent on the oils and other fuels also, but mainly electricity.
Yes.
In a hotel, big component of the expenditure is on the electricity. And in industry, it is like that. So I think the electricity cost is a dilemma for any industry, any investor, any service sector giant. So in Sri Lanka, when it is highest, how can they meet ends together? They can't. They can't.
There was a time when Sri Lanka, the complaint was that we didn't have continuity of power because it was interrupted.
Yes.
Power outages were there.
That was one issue.
Yes.
But that just like you said, the food is available,
Yeah.
but the people can't afford.
Yes.
And therefore they eat 2 meals.
Yes.
Same way, electricity may be available, but people can't afford to. So today, this morning, I was reading a single newspaper.
Yes.
It was complaining that last year, total disconnection of electricity for non-payment was just near 1 million disconnections.
My goodness.
And this year, with the first 6 months, it says over 500,000 disconnections because they can't afford to pay.
Which is a pretty good indicator of the poverty level.
Yes. And that includes small and medium enterprises as well. And so they are all struggling. And so why this happened? Why this happened is in this country, we fail to get low-cost electricity generators in the first place. Renewable energy is also low-cost,
Yes.
but they have their other issues. Limitations. Whereas you must have good proven base load for this purpose. For example, take France.
Yeah.
70% of their electricity comes from nuclear power, base load, pretty guaranteed cheap electricity, and they sell to the region, get a good income, right? So that is their choice. I don't say that we should go for 70% nuclear, but you must have a similar base load. All the countries who are boasting about renewable energy, even Europe, if you go and backyard and see, they have plenty of coal power generation and others in their,
the cheap ones.
yes, cheap ones for the base load. Take India, China, I don't have to repeat, they do the same. In India, 70% of their electricity comes from coal. 70% electricity comes from coal.
Which probably explains why the average cost in Sri Lanka is 40 rupees.
Yes.
But in Sri Lanka rupees, in India, it'll be 20
rupees, half price. So all of their hotels, small and medium enterprises, their big companies, manufacturing facilities like car manufacturing, high-end factories, all are doing well on one hand because of the cheap electricity which they want for every industry. So when we go there, we find that their hotels are cheaper because their electricity and energy costs are lower. Therefore, the government's top priority. I like one thing. The previous governments, previous heads of states and the energy ministers were carried away by this international commitment for renewable energy and net zero emissions, etc. So we set the highest possible targets for ourselves.
Yes.
Not anybody else. We said 70% of electricity by 2030 from renewable energy. I don't say that should not be done. That should be done, but within our affordable limits. And net zero, we said 2050. Now take India. India says, if you go to net and see, we will go for net zero in 2070. We are trying to go with America and that Europe and all this, Japan and all that. Whereas we are the poorest in the region. And now India says we will go 2070. And they say 2030, we will have 50% of electricity from non-fuel electricity sources, which means that is including nuclear.
Right.
Not pure renewable.
Yes.
So renewable plus nuclear will be 50% in 2030. So they are going carefully. So I like the president, if I remember right, and definitely the power secretary said, our commitments we will keep. They don't say that they will drive away from the commitments already governments have made internationally. That is 20, 30, 70% electricity. They say we will honor it. But our priority is affordable electricity. I like that. That shows sense.
Yes.
That shows sense. Okay, we are trying our best to meet the commitment, but we must get our electricity costs down. So we must support that. We must support them, advise them, help them, and find ways how to together achieve that. How to together achieve this. But now I have been in this sector for now 30 years or plus in the electricity sector alone, working in different capacities. And I don't see that, that solution easy. That solution is not easy. It is not easy. To get the, I'll repeat, to get the Sri Lanka's electricity cost down from 40 rupees to where the India is 20 rupees is a formidable task, even bigger than paying the 100 billion loan portfolio. So this is a difficult one, and which is a must if we want to get the GDP growth rate above 5%.
And how do we do that? How do we have to go for LNG and en masse, or what? What do we do?
I think the LNG is also a that it is also tricky business, because now of course now we have set up several power plants now on the hope of getting LNG. LNG is cheaper relative to oil-based electricity. So in the world, base power generation is either coal or natural gas.
Yes.
It becomes liquefied natural gas for the purpose of transportation only.
Yes.
So LNG or natural gas is the most preferred base load option now, in view of the global challenges of global warming, etc. So I think we should try to introduce LNG here. But then how that can be done? That is the issue. Because we want for our consumption annually about maximum of about 1.5 to 2 million tons of LNG.
Right.
So which is in the LNG trade, it is a minute amount. If you take Japan, Japan buys 90 million tons a year. 90 million tons a year, right? So they can negotiate, they can build infrastructure to handle it. Then because their capacity will be distributed among such a big quantity. But for us, we should build a terminal to unload gas, because we have to unload LNG and regasify it to natural gas.
Indeed.
Yeah. So that needs a special equipment, what we call the regasification terminal.
Right.
It can be either floating or land based. Land based ones are little bit more expensive compared to floating ones.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, capital cost will be for the smallest one above $500 million. So you need to sunk that, and then get the LNG at the right price. No one is interested in the LNG trade to bring us 1 million tons a year.
The quantity is too small.
Too small. Too small.
So when you take that into account,
Yeah.
And if I noticed that the CEB have proposed that they carry on with that tender for the LNG, I think the storage plant or whatever it was, taking into account all these and the increased cost of LNG in the market now, will we be able to reach that magic 20 rupees a unit?
I don't think so. That is my feeling. This tendering in general is good, but for this application it will be not good, because then only a few will be put in their proposals, and they also will not be very interested. They will see whether they can fish in the these rough waters and then get something out of already fallen husk. I have a proposal for that. I think the Japanese government has been always sympathetic on us, and they are buying hell of a lot of LNG, and they are in the trade for last 20-30 years. So I suggest to this government, the president and the power minister and all the energy secretary and all that, have a chat with Japanese ambassador, how they can help us to get out of this. Whether JICA can fund us a terminal. Normally JICA funds come with 15-year grace period, 12-year grace period with a very low interest rate. Whether they can fund this terminal. And also for the next 10 years, whether they can include our 1 million quantity with their 90 million tons a year quantity. Because 90 plus 1 or 2 will be nothing.
Yeah.
And unload a few ships which are bound for Japan here as a courtesy help to us.
Yeah.
To come out of this economic issue. And we should say we will very much appreciate if Japan can help us, because our energy is expensive and which is crippling all our industries. I think probably they might help us, because we are not asking for anything free. We are asking, give us a long-term loan which we will pay you when we are okay, and this will assist us to be stronger economically, and we will be stronger, then we will repay you. Right? So it is not something giving free of charge to us. We don't ask them to donate.
And the Japanese buy their LNG in.
Yes.
Right.
They don't have any LNG. They buy from open market.
Right.
And so they buy at a good price, because they are buying a 90 million ton package.
Yeah.
So if they can include our quantity also into that, and as a friendly nation,
Yes.
and who see us in deep economic trouble, right? And if they can, without having any cost on them, as a business model, if they can still help us, so they might still consider. Of course, we had bad relationship with Japan and the JICA over the last regime, but I think now they are trying to iron them out, and they are reviving the old projects now. And so I think this could be a very positive approach. If we want to get LNG at a reasonable price here, then no one can blame anybody, because we are getting Japanese support and buying with the Japanese quantity. So it will be always cheaper than we buying 1 million tons alone. From the open market.
Professor Vijaypala, I think it was yesterday, it was out today, the PUCSL recommendations for the next year. What goodies is in store for the consumer?
Yeah. I also read the document. It just came yesterday. I just browsed through it.
Yeah.
It was only 1 day's time after releasing it.
Yeah.
So they are doing it in the very comfort zone. CEB says, as per our calculation, this is the cost.
Right.
And cost has to be recovered. They say.
But that's in the act.
Yes,
That's
and
in
they
the
also
act.
say it has to be recovered. If it is to be recovered, continue the same high tariff for the next 6 months. That is what they simply say. And there are a lot of things they should say, they could say, they are not saying that.
Because
Because they are in the comfort zone, they are not stretching out to reduce the tariff. They don't want to. For example, I will take one. I was vice chairman in 2012-13. We had power cuts.
Yes.
There were shortages.
Yes.
In 2015, 16, 17 also.
Yeah.
So one thing we did was, among other actions, we introduced a big energy conservation program.
Yeah.
Electricity conservation program. So I went through this document, 56 or 60-page document, UCSL consultation document, which include all the correspondence by the CEB to PUCSL and PUCSL to CEB. I searched there whether the word conservation is there. Not a single location conservation is there. So that means they have not paid any attention.
But that's an important component.
One. Earlier in late 1990s, 96, we had huge power cuts here.
Indeed.
CEB set up a demand side management branch in CEB, DSMM branch, under Deputy General Manager, who was acting on everywhere, trying to introduce CFL lamps, right? And 1996, 97, the first time CFL lamps were brought here. Because I knew I was engaged in my company, we undertook to import 1 million and distribute. Right? And so that was the first time. Energy efficient lamps. Earlier only incandescent lamps and the fluorescent lamps. So I think that was the effort. In 2012, I remember, so we introduced some, competitions. If you got your electricity bill lower from this month to next month or 3 consecutive months, you are entitled to participate in a lottery. And we gave maybe 100 in every category prizes. So people had to go, they said we should conserve. So I'm saying not only that, and then the CEB had programs in every radio channel, right, TV channel, going and saying how to conserve electricity, how to buy equipment, and then the energy star labeling system for fridges, fans, and everything, and then making people aware of them. Buy energy efficient equipment. Don't waste energy. And remember, in 2000, if I remember correct, 2000 must be 12-13, there was a presidential task force on energy efficiency improvements here in the country. So it was high powered, comprising of parliamentarians, group of parliamentarians supported by the officials. They were looking at how to conserve energy in all sectors, not only electricity, oil, biomass, and electricity, how to increase the efficiency of generation and reduce losses in the transmission and distribution and make the appliances more efficient. So all those things are focused upon. But in this consultation paper or in the CEB's proposal, not a single word on how much they can conserve and thereby reduce the demand. Right? And then that if you reduce 500 million units, that will be from the most expensive electricity, which is oil-based electricity that you are saving. Right? So you can cut down a huge expenditure. And that is good for the electricity sector, good for the country, because that is on the imported oil that we are saving. Right? Therefore, I suggest to the PUCSL and to the government, send this proposal back to CEB and ask them where's the energy conservation part, and include the targets, how much you propose to save on energy conservation, and give that benefit to the tariff. Definitely they can give some tariff reduction based on those cost reductions.
And so for the next 6 months, the public will have to further bite their tongues and wait, because we won't see a reduction in electricity prices.
And the same rate of disconnections will continue.
And that is really
unaffordable
almost,
to the people.
Yes, unaffordable, around 600,000 in the first half.
Yes, and the same numbers will continue. Poor, especially the school-going children, and also the industries like small struggling industries to come out. Today I saw in the parliament, the president was telling the SMEs to be helped in this Parate law or something, and thereby giving them time to propose how to settle their loans. And how can they do that when when their business are struggling to meet the energy cost and all these things? How can they repay loans? For that, we must facilitate. So I suggest, therefore, CEB to relook, and the PUC has to relook at this, include not only energy conservation, other possible ways of reducing the demand, and thereby reducing the proposed tariff, and giving people a reduction at this the moment of the need, and that will be good for the government health as well.
And what news of the moves to help households to sort of be self-sufficient in terms of solar and so on?
Yeah, I think now it's like this. Now, these high-end users of electricity, say about those who are using 200 to 250 units or more, if they have a roof, not who are living in apartments and so on, they don't have the opportunity. They have already moved to solar, and they are in the net metering system, so they don't incur any cost. So see, in fact, in other words, if I say CEB has lost their big paying customers, a lot of them, right, by way of the net metering, but it doesn't matter because rooftop has come. But now the people are willing to go for this self-sufficiency and the rooftop generation through other two the methods of purchase selling, net accounting and net plus, right? Many have got into those schemes and generating, but unfortunately these days the tariff has come down. Rooftop solar tariff is some 27 rupees now, and it is on the cards of even going down, maybe to 22, 23 rupees. That is the talk now in the CEB and the circles. But that discourages the investments, etc. But on top of that, for us, this introduction of solar PV, initially you can do without any other investments. But in certain areas now we have come to situation you can't add any more rooftops because of the technical issues like over voltages. And therefore you need other interventions like installing battery storage systems to absorb energy when they are producing more, rather than getting it to the system. And I understand now ADB is assisting CEB or LECO to do some pilot projects by installing central batteries for the transformer islands, thereby try to see whether the amount of solar penetration can be increased. That is one thing. On the other hand, in the larger scale, if you take like 100 megawatt solar parks, etc., you need CEB to install large batteries. CEB to or the plant to come with the battery component as well. On one hand, so that's an additional expenditure to facilitate control. And then CEB has planned couple of pump hydropower plants. That is, when you have excess power during daytime, you pump water up, and in the evening when you have the peak, you pump water down and generate electricity. But there is an investment. You need the reservoir, you need a power plant. So that's so therefore the electricity, if you take solar PV panel price and the power plant price, you can say the cost of electricity is cheap, right? But in order to accommodate that, you need transmission infrastructure on one hand. On the other hand, intermittency control mechanisms like battery storage or pumped hydro. So I think therefore, so we have to add those costs to the unit cost of electricity from the solar panel to get a realistic view. So that the renewables have to be thought not only the pure generation cost, but other associated costs as well. And I think, but still, in the future, it is renewable energy. In my opinion, I have told this earlier also, the world will have to, on intermediate level, go for renewable energy plus nuclear and do away with all the fossil fuels.
Coupled with, as we come to the last minute of our program, coupled with all these technical possibilities and further investment and so on, coupled that along with this perceived thinking or perceived knowledge that change Sri Lanka, no corruption, and for the benefit of the people, then do you think that this will be a reality?
I think that is a big plus point rather than a reality. because I fully agree with you. This government will have almost zero corruption, and the power sector is a fairly, capital intensive field.
Indeed.
And huge investments. I know that since I have been in the field, that how much money was siphoned off over the last 50 years from each project by way of commissions and other payments to interested politicians and other
Parties.
between people and henchmen and so on. Huge amount. If you take Noracholi power plant, unbelievable amounts. And so this government stands at a very high position in regard to that. So they will get the benefit. They will get the benefit, but lot of hard work is required in order to bring the electricity cost of Sri Lanka par with the regional average.
Thank you, Professor Anura Vijayapala. Thank you very much for being on the Turning Point. And that's the way it was. Thank you for watching. Do press the subscribe button so that all the programs will come directly to you. Take care, and as always, God bless you all.